Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas with Shasta Mast. You were talking about the farm experience and getting to spend a day at the farm. Tell us a little more about that, because that sounds fascinating. What would a day look like?
For example, if you go to the farm at Walnut Creek, depending on what season you're there, will dictate as to what kind of things you'll see going on. But in addition to the exotic animals, it's a working farm. So they may be planting, they may be plowing, they may be spreading manure, they may be harvesting produce, they may be gathering eggs. It just really depends on the season. But you can see and participate in that happening. And then if you go through the Amish farmhouse there, they actually preserve the food that they grow there, and you'll see shelves upon shelves of home-canned produce.
Wow.
And I think that is, when food is so readily available to most of the United States in a grocery store, I think it's cool for visitors to see how people put up their own produce, as we've done for generations.
And it's right there.
It's right there.
And if the shelves were ever empty in the store, no problem. They've been growing their own, canning their own for generations, and there it is. Well, that was my next question. Do you watch them do this, or do they put you to work?
You mostly watch, but they will gladly use a hand if you want to pick some beans with them, or want to participate in a demonstration of whatever they might be making. They quilt there. There are all kinds of. It's a real working farm, so there are all kinds of things happening at all different times of the year that you can participate in.
Now, one I've heard of, you said this comes through the Country Coach Adventures, is you get to go to market with the family, come back, prepare the meal, and eat with them around the table. Talk about that.
Country Coach Adventures puts together some really great custom backroads tours. And you can find their contact information on our website. But she'll help you find whatever kind of experience you're looking for. She puts together themed packages, and then it may be a harvest to table experience with a meal in an Amish home. It may be more musical, where they sing for you. I mean, it may be. It may include many backroads Amish businesses like broom makers or candle makers or things like that. So those are the kinds of experiences that, by going through a tour operator, it would be tough to put that together yourself without having those kinds of connections. So using something like Country Coach Adventures will give you a real once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Adventure Harley-Davidson does an amazing thing, which is it's almost like sometimes it's a poker run, and sometimes it's just the tour of food that you take from business to business. You get a little sample of this and that, but you do get to go through some back roads. There is no electricity. There is no pavement in some places, and get to see some of these beautiful farms. Talk about that a little bit, because when you're talking about a tour of food in Amish Country, you are talking about some mighty good eating.
Yes, indeed. If you leave Amish Country hungry,
you only have yourself to blame.
That's exactly right. You didn't do your job while you were there.
Yeah, that's true.
We are known for food. Some signature items include cheese. Heine's cheese, Gugesberg cheese, Holmes cheese are all nationally recognized. Holmes cheese is primarily known for their Swiss cheese. Gugesberg cheese created baby Swiss. They made it up.
Who knew? Right there.
It's really interesting. These three Swiss families all came from Switzerland several generations ago and settled in our region because it reminded them of where they were from. And easy access to milk and all those kinds of things. But it's these three, the Gugesbergs, the Ramsayers, and the Dowalders are the three cheesemakers that came and settled here. Now their families have continued their business. And then Heine's cheese, you can sample more than 50 different kinds of cheese in their showroom that they make.
And to watch it right there.
Right
so
there.
Fun to watch the cheese house demonstrations.
Yes. And it's so important to our economy, not just on the tourism side, but from the agricultural side. That's an outlet for the milk that is produced on both Amish and non-Amish farms. And then Heine's is famous also for their yogurt cheese, which they created and is delicious.
So good.
Yes.
Yes, and now Swisters.
Yes.
Where you get kind of more of a gourmet kind of feel, and it's kind of a hipster place, isn't it?
It is kind of hipster. And it's kind of funny. Amish Country, with kind of green practices and taking care of the land. We're kind of a hipster destination because we were doing that before it was cool.
That's right. You set the standard.
Exactly. So yes, Swisters is in Shanesville, which is right on the edge of Sugar Creek, and they carry a lot of Ohio-made products, including Holmes County-made products, and they can give you the experience of making your own cheese ball, and they have lots of entertainment and things going on there at a regular basis.
And it is so exciting to go up and down the main streets even and seeing the quilting shops and all the different crafts. And you can just buy beautiful, beautiful handmade things there, beautiful furniture. It's so fun. But we want to be respectful of the culture. So give us some tips. What is proper? What's not proper? We're dying to take photographs of those cute little children, but would that be offensive to them?
A good rule of thumb is it's fine to take a picture from a distance where you can't recognize the person.
Okay.
And for the most part, that doesn't bother them. They won't pose, and they certainly it would be rude to get right up in someone's face and take a picture of them. A lot of times you can talk to them and ask them, and they might say, well, I don't feel comfortable having my picture taken, but if you want to take a picture of my 14-year-old boy working in the field from a distance, that's okay with me. So, when in doubt, asking is always a good course of action, just remembering that they're just regular people like the rest of us and not really an attraction. They're just people living their lives the way they've chosen to live them. And they do appreciate tourism. They're very entrepreneurial in general, and they understand for the most part that manufacturing and tourism and agriculture, all those things, has allowed them to live the life that they want to lead. And so they do more than tolerate it. It's a better relationship than just tolerating it. But they understand its role in their lives, but it is relegated to a role in their lives. Their real life is supporting their family, worshiping the way they choose to worship, and ensuring the future of their community.
You kind of think, how would I feel if somebody walked up to me and just put a camera in? What? And as you say, they're not an attraction,
right?
But they do understand the role they play there in the community. It's interesting to go by Shasta, one of the churches, when there is a meeting taking place, a church meeting or worship time taking place there. And this is going to sound terrible. You'd really have to remember where you parked, because every horse and buggy looks the same to me as you, but I'm sure they have relationships with their horses. It honestly, it looks like duplicate horses and buggies, rows and rows and rows of them outside those churches. Talk a little bit more about the culture. It just really is so intriguing, so interesting, and really so beautiful.
It is. And the Amish have church in homes and shops. And it's typically every 2 weeks. So they have an off Sunday where they may go visit another church. But it's every 2 weeks, and it moves around. And you can always tell, like in our neighborhood, we always know who is going to be having Amish church by where the bench wagon is. So they have a wagon that has all the benches and all the plates and dishes and everything that they'll need to host church. And that moves around from family to family. And they know the schedule in advance of when they're going to host church. And it's a big time in the families. They work and clean and get ready for church for weeks in advance. And then their whole church comes that Sunday morning and spends a good part of the day at that family's home. And you'll see buggy after buggy after buggy. And I feel the same way about the Amish men's hats.
Yes.
They'll come in and have a meeting, and they all know which hat belongs to them.
How do they know which hat?
I don't know. Right. It's a mystery.
That's right. You just have to remember where I parked my hat and my cart.
Right, but they know.
Yes.
So just like, certain things that we know, the difference between what my Subaru looks like and somebody else's Subaru, it's the same thing. Yes. I know there's a cup of coffee in the coffee holder. That one must be mine. So they have the same techniques of knowing what belongs to them as well.
There is an interesting custom where the young people are allowed to have one weekend or some time to just go out and experience among the English and see if they want to continue to live in the Amish community or to go out into the world. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. It's called Rumspring, and a lot more has been made of it than what it really is.
Okay.
I think it's because we hold the Amish people to a much higher standard because of the way they live their lives. And all it truly is that when those kids turn 18, they're adults. And they start making choices on their own. That's when you're legally allowed to get a driver's license without your parents' permission. So it's not necessarily a sanctioned thing. It's mostly just kids being kids. Mm-hmm. And so they experience some things. They may get their driver's license. They may, buy a truck. They may experience things that we wouldn't think would be consistent with the Amish way of life. But what's most important is that if and when they choose to join the Amish church, that's when they believe they're making a promise to God.
Yes.
And that they will live a certain way. And so, if someone leaves the Amish church before they've joined the church, there's generally less fallout from that than if they make the promise and then break the promise.
Got it.
So it's just kids being kids, running around, dating, doing what 18 to 22-year-old kids do before they grow up and become adults, and most of them join church.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Most of them come back to this way of life.
And I should mention the Amish population doubles every 16 years.
Wow, that's fascinating.
So people think it's maybe dying out because it's so insular, but in reality, it's a population that's constantly growing.
Isn't that amazing? Okay, that's very surprising. And that goes with my next question for you. What will surprise us most when we visit Amish country?
I think people are very surprised that the Amish population is so diverse in not what they believe. They all basically believe the same things. You really have to take a different look at what the difference is between religion and culture. Mm-hmm. Religiously, they basically believe the same stuff. Culturally, each church sets its own rules, and I'll post something on social media, and someone invariably will say, "Oh, those kids must not be Amish. Look at the bright colors." Well, that church allows bright colors. Uh-huh. You can't make those kinds of assumptions. I think that's very surprising for people. I think it is surprising for people that the population continues to grow.
Absolutely.
I think the difference between Amish and Mennonite stymies folks. Mm-hmm. So that's always interesting and surprising. I think people also think that Amish people are backward, and they're so not. They may have only gone through 8th grade, but that's not where their education ends. Mm-hmm. They're much better, in my opinion, than they call us English, than the English population in preparing their kids for their careers, their vocational training. Because when they're 14 at the end of 8th grade, they have to do something with their lives. And so their parents have been preparing them all along for whatever that's going to be. And I know Amish men who've started businesses in woodworking or in building gates, for example, because that was an interest one of their children had.
Wow.
So that when they were of age, they would have something to do. And so they read. I have Amish furniture manufacturers who are lean, who do Six Sigma. And that seems like a dichotomy, mm-hmm. but it's really not. It's very high tech.
Wow. Well, speaking of high tech, give us the website where we can go see more, find out all of the events and attractions taking place in Amish country.
Visit AmishCountry.com. Very simple. You can build your trip there. And if you have any questions, our phone number's there, and you can just give us a call, and we'll gladly help.
Shasta Mass, thank you for joining us in our community.
Thank you so much for having me.